fighting wars, which is totally unnecessary, and it's prevented these countries actually trying to work out a future for themselves. In December, you'll hear that the Himalayan glaciers will melt in the next 15 to 20 years. This will affect Pakistan, India, and China. And what we should really be thinking about, instead of fighting what I call with imperial paranoia, we should be wondering how we can move 200 million Afghanis and Pakistanis away from war and this competition for fossil fuels and try and build a just economic society. That's, I think, what we owe them after 150 years. Thank you.
As time is pressing, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Tom Willis. Tom has very kindly agreed to step in at the last minute, as I said earlier, as Jeremy Corbyn wasn't able to make it. So, Tom, I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Thanks very much. My name's Tom Wills, and I'm president of the Students' Union at Sussex University. And I've been working with Stop the War Coalition for a good few years now. And obviously the Green Party has always been a vital part of the anti-war movement, so it's a great pleasure to be able to speak on behalf of Stop the War Coalition to the Green Party conference today. And I think, I'm going to be brief so that we have some time for discussion at the end, but I think this discussion is very timely because on the one hand we have an occupation which is becoming more and more deadly, both for the UK and US troops and for the Afghanistan people. And on the other hand, and this is partly, but not only as a result of that, we have British public opinion, which, as the previous speaker mentioned, is turning more and more against the war to an almost unprecedented degree. Now, only yesterday, of course, a British soldier was killed in Helmand, bringing the total to 211 British casualties. And the government cannot escape the fact that the military operation in Afghanistan, which started 8 years ago, is a disaster, and that there's no end in sight. And the previous speaker mentioned what the American generals have been saying about a surge, and the future head of the British Army, General Sir David Richards, has told the Telegraph newspaper that Britain could be in Afghanistan for the next 30 or 40 years. And in addition to that, Gordon Brown has strongly hinted that he would back the American surge that the previous speaker mentioned. So against that backdrop, public anger with the government, as we all know, is rising. Last week, a poll in the Mail on Sunday found that 69% of the British public think that the troops should be withdrawn from Afghanistan. And that mood is certainly reflected in the response that Stop the War Coalition has been getting to our recent campaigning. The local Stop the War groups, including the Brighton group, have been holding public meetings and stalls and demonstrations. And the feedback has been that members of the public have been queuing up to sign our petitions and to get involved, and that includes serving soldiers and people with family serving in Afghanistan. And I think that's a particularly important aspect of opposition to the war today. You might have heard the name of Lance Corporal Joe Glenton, and he's the first British soldier to publicly refuse to fight in Afghanistan. He's already facing a court-martial for desertion, and tomorrow he's set to face new charges of speaking to the media. And I think that shows how worried the government and the army are about the discontent within the ranks. And it's clearly a massive challenge to the kind of unquestioning patriotism which the government has relied upon to shore up support for the war. The argument that we shouldn't oppose the war because we need to support our troops is collapsing, and it's being overshadowed by the reality that, as the previous speaker mentioned, the only way to support the troops is to bring them home. And that's why the government are doing everything they can to make an example of this soldier, of Joe Glenton, and to prevent anyone else from speaking out. And I'm sure we will, in spite of that, see more and more members of the armed forces speaking out over the next few months. So I think what Stop the War Coalition is working on is the national demonstration on the 24th, Saturday the 24th of October. And I think it's going to come at an incredibly important moment because of this shift in public opinion. Because this demonstration is going to give voice to a sentiment which we know is held by millions of people around the country, that the troops should be withdrawn. But the more people that we can engage directly in that demonstration, and in building it, you know, the stronger a movement that we'll create to ensure that that opinion isn't just a statistic in a poll, but it's actually a real political force that through various channels, including obviously the electoral work that the Green Party does, that we can put pressure on whatever government is in power to bring the troops home. And that's why you know, I'd urge you all to do everything that you can over the next couple of months to help us build that demonstration, as I know Green Party activists have done in the past. Obviously the Stop the War office has all the leaflets and posters, and it'd be brilliant if people could order them for their branches and circulate them as widely as possible. And also the importance of the local Stop the War groups, which I don't know how many people are involved in them, but you know, they're a great meeting place for Green Party activists and other left activists, and people who are completely new to the movement and have got involved through anti-war activity. And I'd urge you, if there isn't a group in your area, to set one up. So I'll leave it there, and hopefully I can answer your questions in the discussion. So thank you.